Welcome to Your Intended Message, the perfect place for leaders and promising professionals who want to convey the intended message for greater success. Every week, we interview experts who can help you communicate more effectively, whether that's one-to-one, one-to-few, or one-to-many. And perhaps the most important conversation, one-to-self. I'm your host, George Torok. My guest today is Lori Baker-Schena. Here's 3 facts I think you should know about Lori. 1, she works with companies of all sizes to enhance engagement and happiness. 2, she believes excellent communication skills are the ticket to personal and professional success. And 3, she is mindful to pivot to the positive every day to keep moving forward. Lori, welcome to Your Intended Message.
Thank you for having me, George. And your audience is so lucky to have you as a host because you are a terrific interviewer and your guests are just sparkle. So thank you. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Good. Lori, on that third point, I'm curious, pivot to the positive every day. Now, I'm wondering, does that mean if someone calls me an idiot, I should say, yes, positive, I am an idiot?
No, you're in fact the exact opposite. We wake up every morning, George, with a choice. We can wake up and say it's going to be a crappy day or it's going to be a fabulous day. And we have to realize we always get hit with tough things like people calling us idiots or things not going right. We need to expect that. So we can tackle it on a positive way, or we can let it make us miserable. So if you choose to say, okay, this guy called me an idiot, let's consider the source. What value does he have to me? And what's his credentials for calling me an idiot? So when you pivot to the positive, when you really think outside of yourself and really take in what's going on, that helps you move to the positive. It's a choice you make. I'm going to attack life in a positive way, or I'm going to attack it in a negative way, which is why my whole theme is to pivot to the positive. Because, George, nobody ever moved forward being negative.
That's probably, when I think about it, that's true. Negative takes you back or holds you back, but positive moves you forward. Now, yes. during these times of work at home, communication is even more challenging. And at the same time, it's probably more critical. What do you see people, what are the challenges you see people doing? Where do you see the mistakes, and how can they make it better?
George, that's such a great question, because throughout the COVID crisis, I have been giving presentations on how to work from home. And the thing that annoyed me is I've been working from home in my own business. I started as a marketing business 33 years ago. And it is not easy to work from home. It is something you have to learn to do, like you have to learn to swim. So when all these companies pivoted very quickly, like in 2 days, threw their employees at home with no training skills, you saw a lot of misery, a lot of anxiousness, a lot of anxiety. And even a year later, there are some people that still have not created a home office and still have not become grounded in their homes. So the challenges, which I spoke about last year, is really setting boundaries in your home, making it a workplace. But one of the key questions, which I'm glad you asked me about, of course, is communication, because we have lost the ability to talk around the water cooler, so to speak. So we have to be intentional about communicating with our colleagues, with the people we supervise. And that should be a checklist. That should be top of mind, because communication is totally screwed up in this virtual environment. And we have to relearn the way to communicate, to continue engaging our employees, engage in each other, and staying connected. So while communication was super important pre-COVID, during this pandemic, and as we move forward, it's just become super important, which I'm glad we're talking about that today.
Now, what are you seeing people come to you, Lori, and saying, here's what my here's what my staff are doing, or here's what my boss is doing. How do I fix them?
First of all, I love your name, the title of your podcast, because your intended message is so vital. And for me, I always have a theme of the year. And my theme this year is intention. And so we have to really think about what message we're trying to portray. So you have some bosses who communicate, over communicate, and it feels like they're micromanaging. So people working from home feeling like they're micromanaged because their bosses are in their face every day, constantly, and they're not feeling trusted. And then you have the other bosses who completely don't understand that they need to start communicating and need to reach out, and not just on Zoom, but in a phone call and in via email or a text. Just how are you doing, and do you need any help? So we are trying to fit the challenge that these companies are saying is we're trying to fit old communication styles into a new need, this virtual need. And George, no one has training. No one has ever lived in this virtual world like this. So we have to be intentional about how we communicate and also keeping morale up. I've helped companies work with because teaming on in the virtual world is completely different. So running teams, managing conflict, these are things that I talk about with my clients, my corporate clients, my entrepreneurs. How do you keep your teams functional, keep them communicating, and keep their morale up? These things we've never had to worry about in a virtual world. And again, it all comes down to how you communicate and how you engage.
And what do you see? What are the mistakes that could be, if there's one, two, or three mistakes that a team leader could quickly correct? What would be those top one, two, or three?
I think the first thing a team leader needs to do is set norms, help set norms with the whole team. And I teach teaming. That's one of my strengths, my doctorate. I have a doctorate of organizational leadership, and I worked with teams on that. And I focused on teams. So the first thing you need to do is you have to set norms, and they're communication norms. So such as everyone has to speak, everyone has to have their camera on. There's no one's going to be speaking over each other. There's going to be time limits for speaking. I think a timed agenda is really important. If you have a meeting, first of all, you need an agenda. You need a purpose for every meeting, especially on Zoom. And then you need an agenda that you send a day before so people know what they're going to be doing. And it should be a timed agenda. I just got off of a meeting I have every week with one of my clients. It's the leadership meeting, and it is a literally 10-minute by 10-minute what is going to go on, because you have to stay focused and engage, and these meetings have to be shorter. So all of these tips to keep your teams engaged is important. And also follow up. Have a checklist. What's everybody doing, and how are we moving all these projects forward? So really being organized in your teams, enhancing the communication so everybody understands the rules, the mutual respect, and making these meetings and these teams really worthwhile, not just a waste of time.
Is there a danger in this world of virtual meetings, Zoom, Teams, you name the platform? Is there a danger of the leader believing, well, we hold a weekly meeting on Zoom, I'm communicating, that they might be missing something?
Absolutely. George, you know that one of the most important things good communicators do is listen. And so I really teach people how to listen and listen actively. And if you're listening actively, you will know if your team is functioning well and if things are getting done. Being that observant leader, not always trying to be a motivator, but also stepping back and watching how the team functions, being observational and intentional is crucial for a leader, especially in the virtual environment, because it's not easy. But if you sense that people are distracted, or they're not doing their checklists, or they're not engaged, something is going on. And that's when you need to engage them. So listening is such an important communications tool that leaders need. no, everyone needs it. And it's funny. I loved giving live presentations. I have to tell you, George, but when I spoke about communication, I love speaking about that. I would ask the audience, how many of you are active listeners? And I speak to hundreds of people. I would get 2 people to raise their hands because really none of us are good active listeners. You can tell when someone's listening to you and when someone can't. So that's something you have to, again, it's something you teach, how to be an active listener and the benefits that come from them.
Now, I'm wondering the channels of communication. Is there one that's more, especially in this virtual environment, is this one that's better than the other, or should we use more than one channel because the messages come across differently on the different channels? And I'm thinking Zoom meeting, phone call, text, email, maybe even a letter in the mail or a card. Should we touch all those channels, and what strengths do each of those have?
You just answered my question. Yes, absolutely. They all have a purpose. And Zoom is important because that visual look, but I just posted on my LinkedIn a very interesting article about why Zoom meetings give us fatigue. And one of them is because when we have ourselves up on the screen, it's distracting. And in a real conversation, you never see yourself talk. So taking yourself off the screen and just focusing on the other person is helpful. So Zoom is, that's kind of a thing. Even when you're in meetings, take yourself off that and just focus on the people in the meetings. It's fascinating. It's a fascinating concept because I never thought of the fact that in normal life, when I speak with people in person, I never see myself talk. And here I've been watching myself now for a year. And so that's interesting. But also, so Zoom has its place, but also emails. If you can do something quickly and nicely on an email that a meeting doesn't take, that's really important. Texts are great if you need to check in and want to see how people are doing or how are you doing. But I'm a big supporter of a phone call. Like if the CEO of a company gives a call, makes it a point, and I stress this, to call each of their employees, it's like you 100, 150. If you do one a day, you can reach everybody. And that personal touch doesn't cost a thing and goes a long way, especially no one calls anybody anymore on the phone, but leaving a voice message or using that technology is really, really wonderful. So there's also, companies have their in-house messaging, which is fun to have too. So I think a combination of all those communication things can help us stay close.
And I suppose that phone calls are the what used to be the personal note of my time. I remember working for a large corporation, and every once in a while, I would receive a personal note from the CEO. And it was like, wow, the CEO knows I exist.
That is absolutely a great point. And I love personal notes. I always stress them, especially for job interviews, candidates, and that sort of thing. But that's a lovely thing. The written word too. I think that would be something we should add to our, arsenal in terms of what we can use to help communicate. Because and no one really does that as much anymore. Is that personal note that you get in the mail, and it's just a nice touch. The most important thing is to remember why you're doing that. And it's important for your employees and your colleagues to feel appreciated and wanted. Those two things go a long way. So how do you communicate that so that they respond to that? And that's how you motivate people, by telling them how you appreciate them and what value they bring to the company and how they're contributing to the success of the company. And as an employee, if you want something to get done, you can bring it up and say, I think this is important because this will help with the success of the company. So thinking about your value, thinking about the company's success, all those things together really move the conversation forward and make everyone feel better.
Let's look at it from the perspective of an employee who's part of a team, and they're now working from home, and the only communication they have is at a distance. What if they're trying to grow their career, develop their career, how did they come across with a stronger presence through this type of venue?
I think one of the most important things they can do is participate more if they have the opportunity in these Zoom meetings. Don't go overboard, but be an active participant. Also, if there's an opportunity to do projects or an opportunity, let's say that your company has an agenda, your team, get on that agenda, figure out some innovative things that you could be offering. Be that person who's continually finding ways to make things better at the company. Communicating that via email, via a meeting, everyone likes to see that positivity. And that positivity, how to make customer service better, that helps you move your career forward because it looks like A, you care about the company, B, you're innovative, and C, you're going beyond what you do every day. And even people who don't feel they have a creative job in companies should really get beyond the fear and start offering their creativity, because that is a wonderful way to be seen and also help the company. And leaders like to see that innovation. And it also keeps you fresh. It helps you as an employee, helps you engage so things aren't boring. What can we do better? What are we doing that helps? And also another thing I really strongly suggest companies do is get more involved in the community. So community projects where so many people are hurting right now. And for example, food banks or online tutoring of little kids who are having issues. There's so many opportunities for companies to help their employees engage, give the employees time off so that they can do community skills. So many great ideas that companies can make so that their employees feel involved in their community, and an employee feels really good about the company because they're making it different. And I think even the younger people, millennials and Generation Z, they really enjoy helping the community and being involved. So as a leader, creating those opportunities that again help you like your job more and show your leadership skills. All those, that pathway to leadership, if the company can create pathways to leadership for their employees, they're really very better off, and their employers are going to be happier.
Now, the thought that occurred to me is I've heard from some company leaders that are pivoting, to overuse that word, to take it to serve their customers or clientele differently and grow because of that. So the point is that in a crisis, there is opportunity for those who move rapidly and are creative. That's for the company itself. But also at the same time, I suppose what I think I heard from you is that there's also in a crisis, there's also opportunity for employees to develop and grow their career when they are creative and adapt and innovate and show leadership. So here's a chance to shine.
Absolutely. And if you're lucky and you have supervisors who appreciate that, then you know you're in the right company. And if they allow you to shine and allow you to get creative and mentor that, then you know you're in the space you need to be. And that's a good thing too. So companies need to be very mindful of nurturing their employees. Employees have to be mindful that they need to try and see if they can create an environment with their managers where they have a little space to innovate, especially working from home. And also, on top of it, everybody still needs to have fun. So I've seen really creative things with my clients, having holiday parties online and scavenger hunts and making their meetings kind of fun. Like one of my clients, every week now they have a two truths and a lie for each employee. They rotate. So if anyone's heard of that, there are two things you say about yourself that are truth and one's a lie, and then you have to figure out which one's a lie. And that just brings a lot of laughter and fun, and it starts the meeting off on a fun note. That personalization, that mindfulness to get some good icebreakers in, to inject some levity into the workplace, all that pays off for leaders and for companies. That employee engagement is crucial.
Two truths and a lie. I like that. It appeals to me. And what I find curious is that now there's a technique that might come to light, to birth in this pandemic time, but also would be useful to survive the post-pandemic.
Absolutely. And we need to start thinking about post-pandemic, George, because theoretically, everyone's supposed to be getting shots in the United States by like the end of May or whatever, and things will start be opening up. But the landscape of pre-COVID is not going to be the landscape of post-COVID. Nothing will ever be the same. So now companies should be right now, as we speak, figuring out are they going to keep employees home? Are they going to bring employees back? Is there going to be a hybrid? These decisions need to be made right now so that the company can prepare, and so can the employees, both psychologically, because a lot of employees enjoy working from home. And if they're allowed to do that, then what does it take to fortify them? Some employees really want to get back to the workplace. So what needs to be done to help them? And one of the challenges that I'm working with companies on are how to manage hybrid teams, where you've got half the team at the office and half of them home. And each of these team members have their own challenges. For example, the team's members at work really envy some of the freedoms, such as flexible hours, that person's working from home has. And the people working from home envy that relationships and the collaborations that they're missing. So all of these, it's a multifactorial, very complex set of new challenges these companies are facing. So what does that look like, and how can we prepare? So these are the things that companies should be thinking about now.
Mm. And for those who might be interested in connecting with Lori for help with managing those hybrid teams, or tapping into the consulting and speaking that she does, the way to contact her is at her website, and it's Lori with an I, Lori Baker, and then Schena, SCHENA.com. And that link will be in the description to the podcast as well, how to get a hold of Lori. Now, Lori, in looking through your profile, I noticed that one of the outlets that you've taken is to develop leadership for women. And you have a program which I thought was a clever name, and it's leadershipconsortium.com. What's that program all about?
Thank you for asking. Leadership Consortium came about 3 years ago. My business partner and I were talking about women in the workplace. And this actually is for all of men and women. So I have found that people are promoted to managers and supervisors in a company based on how well they do a job. So if you do a job, you get promoted. The challenge with that is that many times, if not most times, people are promoted and not given any leadership skills. So here you are, all of a sudden you're supervising people. You have no idea how to run a team. You have no idea how to manage conflict. You have no idea how to increase communication skills. And you wonder why you're not doing well. And I noticed that while men kind of have the bravado to move forward, even if they quite know what they're doing, women have an extra layer of how they feel about themselves and their confidence levels. And it's not a judgment thing. It's just who we are and how we show up as women. So I really wanted to help women because we are finally having a seat at the table, but many of us are struggling to stay at the table. And I believe that a lot of that is because of the lack of leadership skills. So we've created an organization specifically to help groups of women, and this is like either professional associations or companies who just want their women there, that extra layer of help with learning leadership skills, but also learning confidence skills, how to show up, how to really feel good about who you are and how you're showing up in the world, and giving them that extra help that traditionally nobody gets in the workplace in terms of leadership. So if you train people to be good leaders, George, you're going to find a happier, more functional workplace. And that is like my legacy. Just in general, I love leadership. It's for women, but my total consulting business is helping people lead. And it comes from my heart because it's so crucial to give people the skills they need to do their job. And for some reason, people do not take that into consideration. And we're not born learning how to manage a team. Believe me, you see so much dysfunction on teams is because no one learned. So that's my goal, and that's why I started that company. And we do we have a conference every year. We do a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, it's about training people to be better leaders.
You mentioned the importance of confidence, self-confidence. How important is self-confidence to effective communication in any channel?
It's crucial. It's crucial to be confident and to show up as a confident person. First of all, for credibility, because if you're not confident about yourself, why would I trust you to be, why would I be confident with you? And I always talk about in my talk, I talk about this pilot who walks onto a plane and he says, well, I've never flown this plane before, but I think I can do it. You're going to want to run away. You're going to want to run away from that pilot, right? Or a surgeon who looks at you and looks at your record and goes, I've really never done this surgery before. I'm not sure if I can do it, but I'm going to give it my best shot. No, thank you. So it's not just pilots and surgeons, but everyone who does anything that when you're communicating those doubts, you're going to make people uncomfortable and not confident in what you do. And you start off really behind the curve. So it's crucial that you be confident about who you are and what you offer. And that takes some skill. It's important to develop your leadership brand, to develop that confidence so you can walk out and meet with anybody and be confident about how you are. And that takes work. That takes work, just like building a muscle at a gym. It's that confidence muscle. It's that inner core, getting rid of those self-limiting thoughts and things that we do. You work on that. You're mindful of that. And that's crucial. And then you show up and people are all of a sudden saying, I want to work with that person. I want to hire that person. I want that person to be my leader, because you've got that confidence. So that confidence is crucial, and not only having it, but communicating it, George, which is crucial.
My guest today is Lori Baker-Schena, offering you 2 truths and a lie. If you like what you heard, remember to like, comment, and share this podcast. Come back every week for more practical insights to help you convey your intended message. I'm your host, George Torok.